there's a culture of public discourse in classrooms in which this stuff really gets results. And children have two responsibilities. They have to speak up so people can hear you, and they have to listen and expect to be listened to. How many students in our classes, when they say something, it's me, teacher, teacher, student, teacher, student, teacher, student. That's the dynamics of most classroom discourse. Teacher, student, teacher, student, teacher, student. And when it's teacher, student, and if it's teacher, student, teacher, student, sleepy time for everybody else, because it's this. There's no expectation that anybody's going to have anything to say about it. This business of the idea of these fractals, or the idea of a hologram where whatever's going on with adults is also going on with children. Most of us are not great listeners. Some people are born great listeners, but most of us have to learn how to listen well. And most staff meetings, most grade level meetings, somebody dominates, somebody shuts down. You know, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. Attending to these things and giving each other tools to work with can launch the conversation. This is a kind of a playful tool. It allows us to own our stuff, you know. And it also works with kids. I've worked with kids as young as second grade. I've had to change the language a little bit when I work with kids that young. But all the way through high school, adults, coaches, teachers, whatever. Tools like this can launch a conversation to get us to agree to certain norms or to rethink how we're actually talking to each other. What we were working on was getting kids to hear each other, to start to attend to each other. And you can hear how hard that is. You can see how hard that is because they're not used to expecting to have to pay attention to what another student says. The idea that you have to repeat something and repeat it, most people think that's insane. I don't have time to do that. If you don't do that, your kids are not learning. You're getting through the curriculum, but you don't have any real evidence of learning. What happens in most classrooms is once a kid gives the right answer, we move on. We don't know why they gave the right answer. We don't know if everybody else has the same thinking or agrees with the answer or not, but we heard what we wanted to hear, so move on. That's what teaching is most of the time. My advice, slow down. Slow down. And find out who heard what. So the basic beginning moves, if you want to teachers to begin to work on this, if they're convinced that talk is important and frustrated because they can't get it going, then here's what you do. The first thing a teacher needs to learn to do is no matter what a kid says when you ask a question, you ask them further questions like, why do you think that? Or tell me how you got that? Or say more about that. Any phrase that will get the kid to tell you what they're thinking, whether the answer is right or wrong. Because we have to help the teachers get away from the right answer nonsense too. It's not about right answers. It's about developing reasoning and the capacity to articulate and communicate. 2, the simplest, easiest move, and one a lot of middle school and high school teachers are afraid of, is turn and talk. Restating by students. The teachers are doing the work. The teachers are doing the learning. That's it. Who's ever doing the work is doing the learning. And finally, the teacher at moments revoices things. So there are reasons why a teacher would revoice, but it's not the beginning and it's not every time. It's when the kids are now at a place where they've been grappling with an idea and we need to give it some clarity. We need to highlight the idea. So those are the 3 or 4 beginning moves of starting to get talk going in a classroom. Any video will get you conversation. Looking for videos where you have great talk so people start to have images of what it looks like, and also images of regular everyday type classrooms so you can compare and contrast them and start to have discussions, dialogue, debates about how important is this talk thing and how much are we willing to invest in getting it to happen in our classrooms. If you don't think it's important, then don't bother. Go on to something else. I want to speak for 2 seconds on this, like this cycle, it's not really a cycle so much as the stages that people go through as they start to get in these collaborative groups. the whole teaching profession for the last 100 years has been individual preference, basically, and we work by ourselves in isolation. So you got 100 years of history here, probably more, and not only in Canada, in any Western country, that's what it's been. And now we're moving to this collaborative work. Well, when you put a bunch of individuals who are used to autonomy, their own preferences, etc., when they sit in a group, the first thing they experience is a feeling like they have to compromise, which is all about winning and losing. It's like my point, I'm going to stick to it, or I'm going to give in and just do what everybody wants me to do. So neither feels very good, but it's usually a first stage in learning to work together. Then comes cooperation, where we're kind of nice to each other and maybe we get a little bit farther along in our thinking, or we can't actually agree on something. And then comes collaboration. Collaboration takes a lot of skill. Collaboration is a deep process that is not about compromising, and it's not about 100% consensus. It's about using evidence and data and working on a project and looking to see what's working and trying it again and all those kinds of things. So this adult path is mirrored in the classroom. You see the same thing with kids. They will compete with each other. They want a star. They want, then if you put them in groups, you'll see kids backing off and kids dominating. Maybe you'll get to some cooperative language, and then eventually you get to collaboration, if you're paying attention to those things. So I'm always thinking on two levels. I'm thinking always about how do adults operate? What kind of feedback are we giving each other? Are we willing to receive? And then what does it look like in the classroom? When we cultivate our own habits, they show up in the classroom, and they raise the bar for what's actually going on in the classroom.